Most people don't attack you directly. They test you. Not with obvious insults. Not with open confrontation. But with small comments, subtle jokes, tiny acts of disrespect. A late reply. A sarcastic smile. Relax, it was just a joke. And in that moment, they're not joking. They're watching. They're studying your reaction. Because your reaction reveals everything: your confidence level, your emotional control, your boundaries, and how far they can push you next time. The world runs on unspoken power dynamics. And before anyone respects you, they quietly measure you. They test your patience. They test your tolerance. They test your self-control. If you overreact, you lose power. If you overexplain, you lose mystery. If you get emotional, you give them control. But here's what most people don't understand. Passing these tests isn't about being aggressive. It's about being unshaken. In this video, you'll learn how people secretly test your weakness, and how to pass every test without saying too much. Most people think respect is automatic. But psychologically, respect is rarely given without evaluation. It is measured first. Human beings are wired to assess social hierarchy within seconds. The brain constantly scans for cues: confidence, hesitation, emotional stability, tone of voice, posture, response speed. This process happens subconsciously. No one announces it. No one admits it. But everyone does it. From an evolutionary perspective, social awareness was survival. Early humans lived in groups where understanding strength, emotional control, and reliability determined safety. Those who reacted impulsively were seen as unpredictable. Those who stayed calm under pressure were perceived as stable and trustworthy. Your nervous system still operates on this ancient programming. This is why subtle tests exist. A delayed reply. A sarcastic remark disguised as humor. A small boundary pushed slightly further than comfortable. These are not random behaviors. They are micro-experiments. The other person observes. Will you react emotionally? Will you explain yourself? Will you seek validation? Or will you remain centered? Your response gives them data. When you overreact, you signal sensitivity. When you overjustify, you signal insecurity. When you lose composure, you surrender perceived power. Psychologically, power is often about emotional regulation. The person who appears least affected appears strongest. This doesn't mean suppressing feelings. It means controlling expression. Silence can communicate strength. Composure can create authority. Boundaries, when delivered calmly, reshape dynamics instantly. The uncomfortable truth is this: people test limits to understand where they stand with you. Not always maliciously. Sometimes unconsciously. But the test still happens. And once someone determines your threshold, they adjust their behavior accordingly. So the real foundation of influence is not aggression. It's emotional stability under observation. When you understand this, you stop taking tests personally. You start seeing them strategically. And that awareness changes everything. The joke test is one of the most common and most misunderstood power tests. It rarely sounds aggressive. It usually arrives wrapped in humor. A sarcastic comment about your ambition. A subtle dig about your appearance. A playful insult delivered with a smile. And when you react, the shield goes up: relax. It's just a joke. But it's not just a joke. It's calibration. The person is measuring your emotional tolerance. They want to see if you laugh along, defend yourself, or become visibly uncomfortable. If you overreact, you appear insecure. If you nervously laugh while feeling disrespected, you signal weak boundaries. If you aggressively attack back, you appear unstable. The strongest response is controlled neutrality. A calm expression. Minimal reaction. Maybe a slow, confident reply like, interesting. No emotional spike. No defensive energy. When you don't reward the provocation with drama, the test loses power. Humor stops being a weapon when it no longer triggers you. The joke test isn't about comedy. It's about control. And the one who stays composed quietly wins. The boundary test is subtle. It begins with something small. A last-minute request. A cancelled plan without apology. A favor that slowly becomes an expectation. At first, it seems harmless. But that's the design. People rarely push your limits all at once. They push them gradually. They want to see how much access they can gain without resistance. Will you say yes to something inconvenient? Will you tolerate being interrupted? Will you accept behavior that slightly disrespects your time? Every time you ignore discomfort to keep the peace, you send a message: this is acceptable. Strong boundaries are not loud. They are calm and consistent. A simple, steady, I'm not available for that. No anger. No long explanation. No guilt-driven overcompensation. The moment you enforce a boundary without emotional charge, dynamics shift. Some people will adjust. Others will pull away. Both outcomes reveal valuable information. The boundary test isn't about dominance. It's about self-respect. And the way you respond teaches people how to treat you. The reaction trap is designed to pull you into emotional exposure. Someone criticizes you unexpectedly. They challenge your competence in front of others. They question your decisions with a sharp tone. The goal isn't discussion. The goal is reaction. Because when you react impulsively, you reveal leverage. Anger exposes insecurity. Defensiveness exposes doubt. Over-explaining exposes fear of judgment. Emotion, when uncontrolled, becomes information. In high-level social dynamics, the calmest person often holds the most influence. Not because they lack emotion, but because they regulate it. They pause before speaking. They lower their tone instead of raising it. They respond instead of react. The reaction trap feeds on speed. It wants immediate emotion. When you slow down, you break the trap. A controlled pause is powerful. Silence after provocation creates psychological pressure on the other person. It forces them to fill the space. And often, they reveal more than you ever would have. Control your reaction, and you control the frame. The comparison test attacks identity rather than emotion. It sounds like, he handled that better. Or, most people your age are already further. Or even subtle praise directed at someone else in front of you. Comparisons create insecurity by design. They trigger the brain's social ranking system. Instantly, you begin measuring yourself. Am I behind? Am I lacking? Should I prove myself? That urge to prove is the trap. When you rush to compete, justify, or outperform in that moment, you confirm that the comparison affected you. You step into the hierarchy they created. The stronger move is detachment. A calm nod. A neutral acknowledgement. No defensive explanation. No competitive escalation. When you don't internalize the comparison, you remain outside the frame of insecurity. And when you stay outside the frame, you maintain power. The comparison test is about provoking self-doubt. If you refuse to compete for validation, the dynamic shifts instantly. Because confidence doesn't compete. It observes. The silence test is uncomfortable. Communication suddenly becomes distant. Messages slow down. Responses become shorter. Energy shifts without explanation. Silence creates uncertainty. And uncertainty creates anxiety. The test is simple: will you chase? Will you double text? Will you demand reassurance? Or will you remain steady? Many people panic in silence because they interpret it as rejection. They rush to restore connection, often lowering their value in the process. But silence is also information. Sometimes it's a power play. Sometimes it's unconscious distance. Either way, your reaction defines the outcome. When you remain calm, continue your life, and avoid over-pursuing, you communicate self-sufficiency. You show that your emotional stability does not depend on immediate validation. Silence only has power over you if you fear it. When you treat silence as neutral instead of threatening, you remove its leverage. And in that space of calm detachment, you regain control of the dynamic. Power tests only work when you react unconsciously. The secret to passing every test isn't dominance. It isn't aggression. It isn't proving yourself. It's awareness. The moment you recognize a test, you create distance between stimulus and response. That distance is power. Most people collapse that space. They react instantly. They defend, explain, compete, chase. And in doing so, they hand over control. Passing the test requires emotional discipline. Slow your breathing. Relax your face. Lower your tone instead of raising it. Speak less than you feel. Silence is often stronger than the perfect comeback. You don't need to win the moment. You need to control it. When you stop trying to impress, defend, or secure validation, the dynamic shifts. The person testing you either escalates, revealing their insecurity, or backs down, recognizing your stability. Every test is an opportunity. Not to dominate, but to demonstrate self-control. Because in high-level social dynamics, the person who governs their emotions governs the interaction. Control yourself, and the frame follows. Fire. Most people think power tests are about other people trying to control you. But here's the twist. The real test isn't happening outside. It's happening inside you. Every provocation, every comparison, every silence, is simply pressure revealing your internal stability. No one can truly manipulate you without your participation. They can trigger. They can provoke. They can withdraw. But the final move is always yours. The moment you master your reactions, the games lose structure. Because power was never in their behavior. It was always in your response. And once you understand that, you stop being tested.